Yes, we're good to go, Chairman.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone, to our final strategy group meeting of this district council. Normal rules apply, please, with regard to Zoom. If we can have some order with regard to the raising of the blue hand, if you want to converse. I'm not too worried about mics being muted, but it probably is good practice just to ensure we get no overspill from your homes and it prevents all types of echo. And it would be really good if we can ensure that we have your cameras on so that we can communicate and see each other. It's also good for those who may be streaming in, with a welcome to all those who are joining us on YouTube. So without further ado, Jevely, do we need to do a roll call for this, or can we go straight into the minutes?
It's up to you, Chairman. I'm happy to do a roll call if you want me to.
Yeah, can we do that so that people know who's on?
Okay. Obviously, you have visual and audio. Councillor Adam Brown, if you could just confirm if you've got visual and audio, please.
Yes, Jevely, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler.
Yes to both.
Thank you. Councillor Cribbin.
Yes to both.
Councillor Hills. You're on mute, I think, Councillor Hills.
Yes to both.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Yes to both.
Councillor Lomax.
Confirm both, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Yes to both, Jevely, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Yes, both, Jevely, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yep, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Can we just confirm everyone is happy with the minutes from the last meeting? Good, looks very good, thank you. Apologies of absence. Councillor Guildford is unwell and is having a week recuperating, so we have apologies from her. Any other, Jevely, any other?
Yes, Councillor Steve Osborne, he's also been unwell.
Which will hopefully they'll be in our thoughts. Declarations of members' interests. Please, if you can declare any interest that you may have in any of the items that are on the agenda this evening. You can either do that now or whilst the agenda item appears. We all know and understand our responsibilities with regard to that. Good, okay. So let's move straight into the agenda. Item 4, housing and environmental health issues, and it's the funding and affordable housing scheme. Over to you, Councillor Cribbin.
Thank you, Chair. This is a fairly straightforward report. It is encompassing 2 proposals that we're asking for your support on this evening. One is to grant a sum of £41,950 towards an affordable housing almshouse scheme in Crick Road, West Haddon. And the second is in respect of extending the time frame in respect of the previous one that came to strategy and then to full council back in October 2020 for a scheme in Goldens View, Norton. The first one is in respect of, say, West Haddon. We're proposing to grant £41,950 from the Section 106 monies that we hold as a council to help a scheme of 6 one-bedroom, one-person bungalows for affordable rent in the village of West Haddon. Now, the housing authority there already have some almshouses there, and this will be an addition to the almshouses there. So this is going to be something that there's been identified need. There was a housing needs survey back in 2019 that identified the need for 6 one-bedroom properties, affordable housing in West Haddon. So we've gone out to the registered providers, and this scheme has come back in. And you'll see at page 13 there's a table that just shows how the money stacks up, and at the bottom of that, table 2 just showing what we're proposing to put into the pot. You'll see also that there's a grant from Winnick Wind Farm in there of £5,000 as well, which is interesting to see. As you know, I mean, we've had plenty of these schemes come through over the years. We get monies from Section 106 where developers put forward a development where they're not proposing to put forward affordable housing on their developments, and therefore we ask them to put forward a sum that we can use across the district going forward. And we've got quite a bit of money sitting in the pot. I think the sums we have are about £112,630 is the sum that we've got in our pot from the schemes that we've got currently, and that using this money will end up with sort of a rebalance of about 70,680 to take forward, probably into the new authority now. But we've got some further funds in there, so it's fairly straightforward. Hopefully members will be in agreement with the proposal to do that and put this £41,950 forward so this scheme can be put to fruition. The second part of the report relates to the Norton scheme, Golden's View in Norton. We approved this at Strategy Group, went through to council in October 2020. Unfortunately, due to COVID, there's been a delay in getting this scheme up and running. So in order to ensure that the monies don't lapse, or the grant doesn't lapse and it comes back to Daventry and it doesn't get done, we're going to extend this. There's an estimated completion date now of October 2022, but they're not due to start building until probably September this year on the site. So we're proposing to modify the time limit from 18 months in the original agreement to 30 months. This will give a cut-off date of 8th of April 2023, which should hopefully give them plenty of time in order to which to get this scheme delivered. So it's basically an insurance policy to make sure it actually happens and it gets taken forward and doesn't lapse. So they're the two parts of the proposal, which is on page 11. So we're putting it forward that the application funding 41,950 towards the affordable housing scheme at Crick Road, West Haddon be agreed, or approved, sorry. And secondly, that we extend the time limit for the Golden's View Norton from 18 months to 30 months. So I'll put that forward to members and open it up to questions if there are any. I think on mute.
Yeah, apologies. Councillor Randall, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to go with the recommendation. I just got one question to ask, really. The housing needs survey, was that just undertaken for the village, or is that across the whole district? And if it's got across the whole district, where will I find that information? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Cribbett, do you have that answer? Or?
I can come back on the point that each village or parish area will have a housing need, so it's specific to that particular area, and that information our officers will hold. I don't know whether it sits on the website for us to be able to see. Maybe officers can perhaps tell me where we can find that information, but it will relate specifically to West Haddon, this particular housing needs survey, and each area is done as and when either the officers or councillors put forward a proposition that it needs to be done, or parishes request that a housing needs survey is done for their area. It's something there's been a lot of them being done recently. As an officer at Daventry called Cat Day who does that, and there's a lot going before we go out from Daventry into West Northants. We've been getting quite a lot done to ensure that we're all up to date with our housing needs for our area. Is there any particular area that you're looking at, Councillor Randall?
Councillor,
whether we can help.
It was Daventry, really, because I'm just thinking that if it's done by village and if it's done by a parish council, I assume some sort of housing form would go out to each parishioner, and then they would fill it in to perhaps identify the need. But I just wonder how that would be done in somewhere as large as Daventry? Because obviously if you're dealing with a village, a lot of villages know people within the village, and I'd imagine that's quite simple. So, you know, and obviously we've got quite an elderly population in the town, and I'm just thinking how marvellous that would be, because I know that often, you know, Daventry councillors have asked for bungalows, because we must have quite a lot of elderly people sitting in 3-bedroom houses that maybe actually would like to have, you know, a bungalow, you know, instead of that big property, and whether, you know, that would alleviate some of our housing issues.
Okay, can we have Simon Bowers? Can you answer Councillor Randall's question, please? Thank you.
Certainly. All the housing needs surveys are published on the council's website, including one for Daventry, actually, which was done in 2013. Arguably, that one would need redoing if one was to rely on it now, because once a few years has passed, they're probably no longer that current. But we have done Daventry, and in the case of Daventry, it says 10,713 surveys were sent out, which fits my recollection, because I believe one was sent to every house in Daventry, as is normally the practice with these things. So typically, every house is given a survey form, and if people have a housing need, they're very much encouraged to respond, so that we can capture that and make use of it. If there is an identified need in Daventry, the town council should talk to what will be West Northants Council about organising a new survey, and that will be fine.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Randall?
Yes, thank you. I'll take that to the town council. Thank you, Chairman.
No problem. Thank you very much. Councillor Lomax, please.
Oh, I'm not muted. You can hear me, can you?
I can.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, a comment and a couple of questions. I'm very happy to support the recommendations. However, reading page 12, the second paragraph, and well, the last paragraph in section 4.1, it says that RPs have generally been slow to come forward with potential schemes. That almost implies to me, as I read it, that they may be at fault. Councillor Cribben and I were at the Affordable Housing Panel meeting this afternoon, and it seemed that in fact the RPs were actually having far more complex difficulties than perhaps the report gives them credit for, unless I misunderstood what they said. So perhaps Councillor Cribben could comment upon that. And the question that I wanted to ask in addition was about the residual funding for these schemes. When it all goes over to West Northamptonshire, will it be ring fenced for affordable housing? Do we have absolute confirmation of that?
Okay, Councillor Cribben probably do the first one. Can you respond to Councillor Lomax, please?
Yes, yeah. We were both on the. I was chairing the affordable housing panel this afternoon, and yeah, we got a fair bit of feedback from the registered providers that they are finding it very difficult at the moment with COVID. There's lots of issues regarding the fact that they are having difficulties in getting people on site. You know, the contractors are having problems because they get, you know, the gangs catch COVID and they haven't got the staff, the people to come and build the properties. That's one thing, but they are also finding that they are having problems with the planning system. And it's not related specifically to Daventry. It's related to all the areas, because we've got registered providers that come in that relate to all of East Midlands as well, and they're saying it's the same across the whole piece, that they are finding it more and more difficult to bring these schemes to councils, because lots of different reasons really. One is, say, that the cost of building is going through the roof. Materials costs have gone up a lot in the last few months or years, whether that's anything to do with COVID and supply issues, supply and demand, that sort of thing. Possibly a bit of a Brexit type of issue as well, potentially, in respect of getting the material. But they do find that it's getting harder and harder. So I appreciate what I say. This report was written prior to us actually having our meeting this afternoon, so we knew nothing of the problems that the registered providers are having. So So I think the report isn't trying to criticise them in any way. It's just trying to suggest that they have been a bit slow in bringing projects forward, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I think we need, and the next council, West Northants Council, needs to be quite proactive in encouraging registered providers to bring schemes forward and to assist in any way, shape or form they can. And part of what we're doing, Councillor Lomax, is with our monies here is helping schemes that would never get off the ground normally. These schemes would not happen if it had not been for the monies that we have. And I think we're being quite proactive as a council using the Section 106 monies to help fund these schemes. And so we have got quite a bit of money left over in the pot. My understanding, I'll just touch briefly on your second point, your second question about the ring fencing. My understanding is that these legal agreements that we have, Section 106 agreements, specifically do ring fence it for the area of Daventry District. What I don't necessarily know is how that will work going forward, whether or not West Northamptonshire will interpret that slightly different. But I understand that it will be ring fence for Daventry District area, and I don't know, perhaps Simon Bowers could come in back and give us a bit more info on that, perhaps. But I think it is pretty safe that these should be still Daventry areas going forward.
Thank you, Daniel. Councillor Cribbin. Simon, can you shed some light on that second point?
Chairman, I've got very little to add to what the portfolio holder has said. He's captured it very well. Just to say, the report isn't seeking to any criticism of the RPs. The reason that expression is in there is just to explain why we're proposing to spend money raised in Clipston in West Haddon. And because if we waited for a scheme in Clipston, where the money came from, we will probably wait too long and have to pay it back. So there's no criticism intended or implied of RPs in that sentence. And in terms of the ring fencing, Councillor Cribbin's absolutely right. That is what the legal agreements say. Now, of course, it isn't beyond the wit of man for the new council to negotiate a variation to that. So I wouldn't completely say it's impossible to change it, but it would be quite a faff. So my suspicion is the ring fence will survive.
I'm sure the local representatives, whoever they may be, will have something to say about that. We'll have Alan Hills, and then we'll move on to the vote on this one. Councillor Hills.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I support this, but I just wanted to make a comment that regarding the Norton situation. This was knocking around when Norton was part of my county council division, so it's been going on the go for quite a long time. And I just wanted to say that I think it's essential that we monitor and make sure that these timescales are kept to, even though they're going to be passed over to the new unitary. I'd just like to make sure that we monitor, particularly regarding Norton, because of the same amount of time it's been knocking around and talked about, that you know, these timescales, wherever possible, that they're stuck to.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now go to the vote. If you are content that this matter is recommended to full council as indicated on page 1B, do so by raised hand, please. Any abstentions? Sorry, Councillor Randall, is that an abstention? Oh, you got a blue hand up.
No, to vote for it.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and no, there were no objections. I couldn't see any. Please indicate if there was. Good. Okay, that's unanimously through. Thank you, Councillor Cribbin. We'll now move on to strategic matters, starting off with the consultation on changes to the National Planning Policy Framework, and over to Councillor Chandler. So,
thank you, Chairman. The government has seeking views on proposed changes to the National Planning Policy Framework, but it's also, as a separate exercise but related, seeking consultation on a draft National Model Design Code. What I've got before you this evening is the draft response to the NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework changes. It's important to note that these changes to the NPPF should not be confused with the proposal in the white paper to change the planning system extensively. The NPPF remains an important document. The majority of the changes suggested on this time are related to the policy on the quality of design of new development. This is responding to recommendations of something called the Building Better, Building Beautiful Commission, which I have to own up to saying I haven't read their report. I don't think I could have got beyond the title page, but there we are. And that's why they're also seeking views on a draft National Model Design Code. The changes to the NPPF are therefore mostly sensible, we think, but inevitably there will be specific issues of varying degrees of significance which we need to raise with them if they are to work effectively in the context of currently Daventry District and subsequently West Northamptonshire. In particular, Councillor Brown will be interested to note that they are suggesting revisions to the policy to do with Article 4 directions, and we're not happy with their suggestions because they actually would detract from the importance of the Article 4 direction as a mechanism for helping to respond to local issues and ensure the delivery of development strategies and to protect the amenities of areas. And of course, this is particularly important in the context of the continual revisions and expansions to the permitted development regime. And we draw their attention to that in the response. But mostly, Chairman, the response is fairly bland, as you can see from the proposed draft. It's yes, we agree with this. We've highlighted the problem with the Article 4 directions in the response to question 3. And we've also had some comments on the housing delivery test because of there being some possible confusion as to what value would be applied in any particular circumstance. But basically, Chairman, it's fairly bland response to a fairly bland consultation. And the recommendation is, oh, actually, it's a resolved item, Chairman. Yeah. This is Daventry District Council responding to a request for consultation views, and these have to be within government by the 27th of March. So this is a resolved item that the response, as set out in the appendix, be agreed and dispatched, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And as Councillor Chandler has already alluded to, regular viewers of our YouTube channel may be aware that my feelings about Article 4 directions are mixed. So it was that response to question 3 which drew particular attention from me. The rest of the responses, I've read through them and I agree. On a personal note, I largely do not object to the changes regarding Article 4 directions. I think they're a step in the right direction. So I would propose a slight amendment to that response, which would be to delete all words preceding our preference. So the response from DDC would simply state our preference would be for inclusion of the first of the optional wordings with removal of the word wholly and clarification, blah, blah, blah. You may need to put a preamble just to clarify where the optional wording is coming in. I'll leave that up to officers, but for previously stated reasons, I have objections to the wholehearted support for Article 4 directions, as Councillor Chandler will not be surprised to hear.
Okay, with regard to how we proceed with this, can these, I seek officer advice on this, can these amendments be dealt with now, and or do they need to be taken away and thought through and represented? Simon Bowles, please.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 points, if I may. Just on the substance, one thing Councillor Brown might want to consider is a large part of what the government is proposing is a very strong objection to using Article 4s to prevent the conversion of offices, shops and the like to housing underpinted development rights. That's a kind of Article 4 that I believe Councillor Brown was happy with when we put that through recently. So I understand entirely your position, Councillor Brown, about their use in sort of conservation contexts, but where they are used to enable the plan's policies to be applied and to protect employment sites and town centres, that has been something that this council has previously adopted, I think, unanimously. So to just sort of point that out, and you may want to consider your position, having heard that. In terms of the process, there's nothing to stop Strategy Group making an amendment to the advice here and specifying that amendment either as precisely or as loosely as you wish to do. That's not a problem at all.
Okay, first of all, Councillor Brown, having had that narrative from Simon Bowers, are you happy to proceed as written, or are changes, do you feel changes still required?
Yeah, I'm happy to proceed as I proposed originally. I thank the officer for his clarifications, but I had considered those points. But I'm still minded to propose the amendment. I don't think it's a particularly significant amendment. Yeah, I've already stated my reasons.
Okay, clarification for me then. Do we vote on is it a motion and it needs to be seconded, or can I have some advice, please, Attorney Gillett?
Yes, Chairman, you need a seconder to the amendment.
Okay. Is there a seconder that is willing to? Okay, we have David Smith on that. So now do we vote on, because we probably need a text, to be honest, for accuracy. Is somebody willing to help us with that text, and then we can then vote on that? Presumably we vote on the amendment now, as it has been seconded.
Chairman, yes, you would take a vote on the proposition as amended. The amendment was captured as the removal of the words that Councillor Brown identified within the response on the question 3.
Okay, is everybody clear on what the amendment is? Or does anyone want further clarification?
I'm not, Chairman. Can Councillor Brown clarify precisely?
Yes, Councillor Chandler. It was simply to remove all words before our preference.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
All right, so if everybody understands that, those who are in favour of Councillor Brown's amendment, please indicate by the raised hand. Okay, who is anyone objecting to that? So, I'm sorry, I lost, that's, okay, one objection. Can I confirm there's any abstentions to it? Just one objection. So I would say that that motion is carried. With regard to the resolved item, do we now have to revote, or is that sufficient? So do we now need to resolve it as including the amendment?
No, Chairman, that is your resolution.
Resolution, so that's all now been dealt with.
Yes, Chairman.
All right, okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Councillor Chandler, and we'll move on. Okay, let's move on then to the next item, which is the Clipston Conservation Area. Over to you again, Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will by now be well familiar with the process of designating conservation areas. And they may well recall the fact that back in November, we resolved that a consultation should take place on a conservation area designation, appraisal and management plan for Clipston. This consultation was, of course, affected by the conditions caused by the pandemic. We were able to have an exhibition in Clipston Village Hall at the beginning of March a year ago, 2020, before the pandemic was recognised and caused restrictions. But we couldn't have a physical public meeting during consultation. Instead, a virtual public meeting was held in December. This was actually attended by 6 people, 2 members of the parish council and 4 members of the public. And a recording of the meeting was made available on YouTube and subsequently was viewed 20 times. The responses to the consultation are shown in the appendix, and members may be as pleased as I was to see the extent of those responses and the helpful comments that people had made, which have been taken into consideration. The responses were received either during the online survey or email, or a combination of these. The responses were generally in support of the proposed conservation area, although there obviously were some requests for changes to the boundary. And there was one request to include a property in Harbour Road and 2 requests to exclude their property. The draft appraisal also includes initial proposals for Article 4 directions to control the development of some properties within the conservation area. This has been our practice for a number of years. We believe that the document as amended following the consultation is now in a fit state to go forward. It's suggested, therefore, that the appraisal should be adopted and the proposed conservation area boundary be agreed. It's also suggested that the local list entries are agreed and that Article 4 directions are made and subject to further consultation. So my request of Strategy Group this evening, Chairman, is, as listed in those 6 recommendations, that this should be agreed by Council to designate this as a conservation area and adopt the documents as proposed, Chairman. I think that's it.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairman. To avoid repetition on this subject, I think the next 3 agenda items all have reference to Article 4 directions. So I think it's extremely important that whoever receives and determines upon those Article 4 directions at West Northamptonshire Council pays particular attention to the results of the consultation, the views of residents and the views of those affected by those potential Article 4 directions. I hope that happens, and yeah, I've no objections with the proposals in front of us on any of the following items, so I will leave it there on my Article 4 direction campaign.
End of an era. But I'm sure that if there are any issues in the new authority, and any of us are privileged enough to serve in that council, we will ensure that the battle continues, Councillor Brown. So, okay, Councillor Morgan, please.
Chair, did you say Councillor Morgan? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I just, who was it that had the blue hand up? I've clicked it now.
I had a hand up, Chair. I didn't quite catch if it was my name or somebody else's. Sorry.
I did say Councillor Morgan, please.
Oh, Chair, very simple point from me, actually. I mean, in the old days, I used to enjoy standing up in the chamber and congratulating officers on these reports. And I think it's fitting to say, I mean, these next three items again are always beautifully produced, and they're in many respects works of art in terms of their production and the design and some of the graphics in there and pictures and so on. And I shall certainly miss these going forward, and I hope the new authority has the same dedication and care to these kind of reports as we have from this one and the team that put them together. It was simply a congratulatory note, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. And I would second that. You know, I'm a very keen genealogist, and these are really good historic documents, really, once they've been archived, and to see the actual history of these pictures. So yeah, very grateful. So it doesn't look like anyone else would like to speak. So if you're happy to recommend the Clipperton conversation area to full council, please do so by the raised hand, please. And are there any objections or abstentions? See any? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So let's move on to the next one, please. Great Brimington, please.
Yes, Chairman. Exactly similar story to the previous one, but the consultation was requested in September and has taken place through the usual channels. The consultation ended in January this year. There was an exhibition held on a very auspicious day, the 19th of June 2019. And due to the circumstances surrounding the COVID-19, it wasn't considered that a physical public meeting could be held. An online one was held in December, attended by members of the public. I don't have a record here of how many. 6 responses were received. They were received by email. They are spelled out in the appendix. They were all largely supportive of the proposals, including support from the parish council, which is always good to see. And there were suggestions about particular properties being added to the local list, and some of those were agreed that they should be added to the local list. None of the proposals suggested any changes to the current boundary, and as it's considered fit for purpose, this is a review, therefore, of an existing conservation area. And the draft appraisal proposed the adoption of 12 heritage assets onto the Daventry local list, and they are listed as Councillor Brown has already indicated. The document also includes proposals for Article 4 directions in the usual manner, that further consultation should be carried out, and it should be made clear to particular property owners whether or not their property would be included within the Article 4 directions. So, Chairman, the Great Brimington Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan has been through a consultation exercise. The results have been considered. Subject to some amendments, it's recommended that the appraisal should be adopted, the proposed conservation area boundary be agreed, and it's also suggested that the local list entries be agreed and Article 4 directions be further consulted on. That's all I have to say here, Chairman.
Anything from the group, please? No, it doesn't look like it. Thank you. We'll take it straight to the vote then. If you are happy to recommend this to full council, please do so by the raised hand. Thank you. And any opposed? Abstention? It looks like it's unanimous as well. Thank you very much. And your next one, please, sir. The over to Spratton now.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Spratton is not currently a conservation area, and so this is a new proposal. So what you have before you is the draft of the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan, and also the proposal that eventually Article 4 directions should be used to control development with regard to alterations to windows, doors, roofing, porches, walls, gates and fences. This is the common list, Chairman, and it's just to make sure that properties within the conservation area retain the reason why it was a conservation area in the first place. So this has been the first opportunity to appraise the architectural and historic interests of Spratton. And I'm sure that everyone has studied in some detail the consultation draft of the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan. And it is, as has already been stated, a magnificent piece of work. I personally have been very impressed by the way in which this work has been carried out throughout my tenure as portfolio holder in this area, and wanted to make the particular point that the staff involved, and it's largely two people, Rianne and Anna, have really worked very hard throughout the entire period producing these wonderful documents, which, because they're all available when adopted, give anybody an opportunity to explore this part of Northamptonshire in some detail. Spratton does have a village design statement, which has been adopted in 2013. And that obviously was consulted in the production of the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan. So what we have then, Chairman, is a draft document for consultation. There is probably little point in discussing its content in detail because it's going out for consultation, and that is the opportunity for people to raise points specifically with the staff concerned. The consultation will probably be governed in some way by the COVID-19 situation, even though we appear to be heading for emerging from the strict lockdown in the near future. And because it's a 6-week consultation, it will outlive the district council and therefore will be considered by West Northamptonshire Council in the fullness of time. So this is a resolved item, Chairman, because it's for consultation, that the consultation be undertaken on the draft Spratton Conservation Area and Appraisal and Management Plan, and that Article 4 directions controlling development as listed on your papers be included in the consultation later. Thank you, Chairman. I think that's all I need to say at this point.
Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairman. On a related point to Councillor Chandler's praise for the documents that regularly come before us, this is an issue that's cropped up in conversations with colleagues at the Shadow Authority, and the need for people from across the region to get to know the other areas that will come together to form West Northamptonshire. I just wanted to know if it is possible, or if even if it's already in the pipeline, for some sort of digital library of these conservation area documents to be put together, handed over to West Northamptonshire Council, so that moving forward, people from across the West Northamptonshire area can review them, get to know the villages and the various areas that currently make up Daventry District. And I think it could really enhance the ability of new members from across West Northamptonshire to get a feel for what our district is all about.
Is there an officer that can answer that with regard to any suggestions that have been put the new authorities' way with regard to archiving and accessing these documents in the future? That'd be for you, Simon.
Chairman, I noticed that the portfolio holder had his hand up, so perhaps.
Oh, I do apologise.
Would like to respond. I can happily add.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. What I wanted to say was that details of all of the conservation areas, village design statements and neighbourhood development plans are available on the District Council website currently. And I imagine that they will persist across the boundary into West Northamptonshire. But I do like the suggestion from Councillor Brown that something be done to draw the attention of others within the new authority to this archive of material. I imagine, but I don't know because I haven't bothered to check, naughty me, that the other authorities have similar facilities on their own websites.
Well, I'm sure whoever will own that portfolio in the new authority will ensure that that archive is brought together for the whole of the West and can be accessed by the public. As I said, it's a very, very interesting source of family history research, and it would be a shame to just have them lost somewhere. So unless anyone else wishes to speak on this matter, just one point I wanted to raise. When Councillor Chandler was talking about those responsible for putting these documents together, I thought about what fun it must be when you find, if you look at page 116 and preceding that, see the old photograph of the street, and then next to it is this how the street looks now. That must be such a fascinating job to have, to be able to find those old postcards and photographs and be able to do the then and now. And as you said, they're a fantastic piece of research available to the public. Okay, without no further ado, I'm happy to resolve this and then take it forward to consultation. Please do so by a raised hand. Good. Any opposed or abstention? That's unanimous. Very much. And now to Overston Hall, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I don't want to spend too much time on this document. I'd only tend to go through it with you, you'll be pleased to know, because this is a resolved item, Chairman, that the draft Overston Hall planning brief should be consulted on. We have, as you know, been struggling since 2001 with trying to keep an eye on, at the very least, the development of Overston Hall, which was severely damaged by fire in 2001. And we also will remember that a few years ago, I think 2016, the District Council granted permission to the current owner, Barry Howard Holmes, for some conversions of the building to make it usable, and this would involve restoration. We also know, of course, that project has what is called a conservation deficit. In other words, the finished product would not raise enough money to pay for the conversion and restoration, and so some enabling development has been sought, but that has yet to be resolved. So we decided some time ago that we should prepare a planning brief which spelled out some detail on what we have, what is the scope of the planning brief. It is to make sure that there is a proper record of the condition of Overston Hall, the levels of intervention and options for use that have been recognised, and details of controlling or managing enabling development, and what the requirements would be for submitting such a planning application. All that is spelled out in this document, Chairman. If you have looked at it, then you may be impressed, as I was, by some of the illustrations which show what the hall looked like in its former magnificence. And it is a shame, of course, that it was allowed to fall into such a state as it is now. So I don't intend, as I said, Chairman, to go through the detail of the document. I simply try to create its context so that you will understand why it's here, and it's before you tonight simply to resolve that it should go for consultation, and of course the consultation will be subject to the usual restrictions due to the pandemic, and also to a time frame which will require its consideration, or the result of the consultation, to be considered by West Northamptonshire Council. Thank you, Chairman. I think that's all I need to say.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Just one, I'm just curious. Was this place not, did it have any insurance? You know, because normally buildings have just repair it. Or is that too simplistic? Or sorry.
I think the chief executive might have an answer for that, yeah. But the owners at the time of the fire were a power unto themselves, I think.
Okay. Vincent, please. Thank
you. Chairman, yes, it was insured, and yes, the owners that insured the property, who are listed in the document, didn't use the money effectively to repair the hall. So there is a deficit, as Councillor Chandler has just said, and it's taken really till now to get somewhere near a solution, and this document will help.
All right, thank you. I was more curious than anything else. Councillor Cribbin, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this falls in my my ward, and I can say no, thank you very much to Simon Bauer's team, or was Rhiannon Morgan, I think, who's prepared this document. She's done a very good job on getting this document to us. It's been a thorn in the side of Overstand, I think, for a long time. This building, as you know, we've alluded to tonight. You know, it was 2001 when it burnt down, which was the year prior to me starting off as a district councillor. I started in May 2002, and it's been something we've been trying to get forward, to try and get it repaired for all that time, and we're eventually getting somewhere. Obviously, going forward to West Northants, I don't know whether the portfolio holder can assure me that this particular report, plus also the conservation areas, that they're definitely going to be considered by the new authority. We got agreement that they will definitely be considered, because it says on page 197 of our report here, it says because of the transition, this report would be for the new West Northants. If adopted, the SPD would become material consideration. Now, I'm assuming that West Northants has agreed in principle to at least put it to council to decide whether to adopt. It won't necessarily just fall between the cracks, as it were, alongside with all the conservation areas that we're putting forward tonight. It will definitely be considered and up to the council then to decide whether they are adopted. That's the first point. Secondly, I'm just looking at the proposal for the consultation. As previously with the other documents we've looked at tonight, there's no date in here as to when consultation's going to start. Are we proposing as soon as practically possible? And that obviously that will be within the new West Northants Council to take it forward, obviously, because we haven't got that many weeks left for Daventry to do that. Do we have any dates proposed, Councillor Chandler, for when this consultation might happen on this one?
Thank you, Councillor Cribbin. Councillor Chandler.
I believe, Chairman, and I've received reassurance at various times that all work in progress will be carried forward to the new authority. It will be up to the new authority to decide how and when to deal with that work, but it will not fall through a crack. It will arrive in the new authority's in tray, as it were, and of course then it's up to the new authority to determine it. As to the date of the proposal, of the consultation, I think that you're right in assuming that you'll notice that the resolution says that the document be finalised and consulted on. And what that means, of course, is that as soon as it's ready for consultation, it will go for consultation. But if Simon needs to correct me, I'm all ears.
Chairman?
Yes, please, Simon, if he needs any correction.
I'm certainly not going to correct the portfolio holder. He's absolutely right. All I was going to say, by way of elaboration, is that finalisation is effectively complete. So I would hope we can kick off the consultation next week.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, and I just think with regard to concerns and worries about the new authority, you know, I am sure that the council representatives that will be overseeing these areas will not allow these things to fall through the cracks. That's partly why if we do get in, we will be voted for to ensure that these things are not lost, that we continue to lobby and petition and ensure these things move forward and are carried on. So we have a certain amount of responsibility if we are fortunate enough to serve in the new administration. Over to Councillor Randall, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is one that's obviously been going on for quite a number of years now. Always one that I actually wasn't really particularly happy with, because the state of the building, I always felt that it was way beyond any sort of economical repair without there being a huge housing development put on that site. I just wondered, actually, because I'm trying to think back now that we put some money in and whether we were going to get some money back. If what I can't remember what it was, if what money we put in and what money we was expecting back. If it's going to come to a point where the new authority are going to have to put even more money in, will it ever go any further than what it is now? You know, and what exactly we're expecting to get from this. You know, are we expecting a lot to come in and put a load of houses on the site, or exactly, you know, I keep reading through this, not really to me what we're expecting of it.
You were a bit broken. Councillor Chandler, did you get enough to answer that, or would you like Councillor Randall to repeat?
I think I did, Chairman, but if my response is inadequate, then I'm sure she will tell me. The responsibility for this building lies with the owner. That's the law. The owner, because it is a listed building, is responsible for its upkeep and conservation and preservation. We therefore don't have any interest in funding any of the work concerned. Obviously, we've had to fund our own work. As regards the enabling development, proposals have yet to be received from the owner, and he did at one point suggest that he wanted to put a lot of housing on the estate area near to the hall, but that was withdrawn, I think, after some discussion with the local planning authority. That wasn't the best place for this housing to go. It's a matter of negotiation as whether or not the owner can find a suitable site somewhere that can be used in the process of enabling development, in other words, to produce enough money to help plug this deficit. I think that's all I can say, and I don't know, I think that probably addresses most of what Councillor Randall was raising, Chairman. Our input has been, as the local planning authority, and it's mostly been offering advice to the owner and in the producing of this supplementary planning document, the planning brief.
Okay, Councillor Randall, was that sufficient for you? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so just basically we put into the project. So I do project on our budget sheet from time to time. So how much has it cost us, and are we back, and are we expecting the Western Authority to be putting any more money into it?
Okay, so the question is, how much money we put into it? Are we expected to get that money back? And is the West going to be expected to put any money into it? Is that
Yes.
what you were asking? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Chair, thank you.
Okay, Alan, can we answer that question? Or
I can't, Chairman, but there might be somebody here who can.
Can any of the officers tackle that one for us?
Chairman, the amount of money that's been spent on the hall is in the thousands. I think less than 10,000. The reports that Councillor Randall are thinking of is where council was considering a much more major investment if the owner didn't take steps to cooperate. The original owner sold the hall to the current owner, and that owner has, for better or worse, sought to work with us to come up with a solution, and therefore it's not been justified to put a large amount of public money in. And as things stand, there's no plan to put either DDC or West Northampton Council money into the site.
Thank you, Councillor Randall.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Conversations moved on a little bit since I put my hand up, but Councillor Cribbin expressed some concerns about whether or not matters such as this will come before council at WNC. They won't come before council because of the governance structure at the new council, but I'm more than happy to have a conversation with Councillor Cribbin and clarify exactly how the matter will be dealt with, and I'll clarify it for him via email or via a phone call at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. And Councillor David James.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's tremendously important that we get this brief out to consultation as soon as possible and as widely as possible. I'm looking down the list of further stakeholders, and you've got Northampton Borough Council, Borough of Wellingborough Council. You could also add, possibly in that location, Kettering Council as well. These authorities have all had experience of dealing with what I call difficult situations. And this really is a difficult situation. I mean, even I've flipped a bit since I first got involved with this. Must be, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And they will have people who've knowledge of what happens when assets like this do get to the stage where you may have to make a painful choice. Or on the other hand, you may decide to make a very ambitious choice. And given that they will know probably the demand for alternative uses in that locality, what alternative use, other than the ones that we've come up with in the past, you know, a conference centre, a hotel or whatever, they may have some very imaginative ideas about that, which could result in perhaps, I don't know, a partial repair and a little bit of restoration, I don't know, perhaps some form of leisure use. But it's not going to be very easy. And the more views that we can get from the various stakeholders, the better it will be. But it is essential that we get on with this now before further deterioration occurs where the decision is absolutely made for us. Thank you.
James. In that case, it looks like we've had a reasonable debate on this. Those of you who are happy to resolve this for consultation, please do so by the raised hand. And are there any abstentions or any opposition to it? No. Okay, that looks like the agenda items as declared. Any urgent business, Chief Executive?
No, but mine's an abstention on that last one.
I do apologise. Thank you. Officers, can we have that as an extension for Councillor Wendy Randall? Sorry, Chief Executive, did we have any urgent business?
None this evening, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm sure there are going to be motions and lots of thanks pinging around at our last full council meeting. But can I just, as this is our last strategy group, thank all those members and officers that attend and have made so much success of this council over the years. Thank you for your endeavours, and that is much appreciated. But I think it's really appropriate to thank Jeverly. I know she understands she's been with this strategy group for nearly 20 years, and it's not often that those people that actually probably keep us together, keep us in order, keep us running, don't often get in the limelight. But I would like, and I'm sure we would all like, to thank you, Jeverly, for your public service, for keeping us on track and keeping us organised. Without you, we wouldn't do it. It wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much. There'll be lots of other thanks for everyone else, but this one's just for you. Okay, and with no further ado, everybody have a good evening, and we'll see you at full council in a